Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2020 Grand Design Momentum, and we're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Roadmaster Comfort Ride Slipper Spring System. This system is going to be designed to replace your leaf springs and have additional shock absorbers that you will add on in order to give you a more comfortable ride when you're going down the road. From the factory, a lot of these rigs, especially the bigger ones, the leaf springs that come on them are not enough to give you a comfortable ride. A lot of times the manufacturers of these RVs will just take the same leaf springs and put them on their entire fleet just because they're good enough for the axles that they're attached to. But they're not good enough for the weight of the camper itself. This system is going to replace your entire suspension system. It's going to get rid of the equalizer, which if you don't know, the equalizer on a traditional style leaf spring set is designed to, what it'll do is it'll take the shock once you hit a bump with your first axle, it'll send that axle up, it'll transfer energy to the back axle. The axle is still on the ground, so it'll send it back to the front, and that's how it tries to equalize the suspension or equalize the axles when you're driving down the road. The Comfort Ride system is going to eliminate the equalizer. It's going to be a slipper spring style, so you'll still have leaf springs, but it won't have a solid eye that it's attached to on each end, so the spring can actually flex and move a little bit as it's compressing. So each axle is going to travel on its own, so when you hit a bump, the first axle will bounce, the second axle will bounce once it hits it, and you don't have this back and forth action. So if you've ever felt chucking or porpoising, that's where a majority of it's coming from, is your suspension on your trailer. And that's what we're trying to eliminate here. In addition to that whole new style of leaf spring system we have here, you're going to have 4 shock absorbers, which just like on your vehicle, it's designed to help bring your axles back to center. They are going to want to naturally recenter the leaf spring so that whenever you're hitting bumps, the spring is going to take the brunt of it, but the shock is going to bring it back under control. This kit's going to be designed for 5,200 pound axles up to 7,000 pound axles, and that's going to put each leaf spring pack rated at 3,500 pounds per pack. In addition to this kit, we did a couple more upgrades on this camper because, in my personal opinion, it needed it. The owner of this vehicle decided to go with new Kodiak disc brakes, which are going to help them to come to a more controlled and safe stop when you're pulling this much weight. And the other upgrade that we did is going to directly complement the Roadmaster Comfort Ride, and that is going to be the MoreRide X Factor cross braces. And essentially what they're designed to do is they will bolt on to your front and rear hangers, and they're going to provide more stability to those hangers because from the factory it is just a U-shaped piece of metal that is welded to the bottom of the frame. And when you got a rig this heavy, we have actually seen those hangers bend before, so any way that you can stabilize those, we want to do that. Now that we've gone over a few of the details, let's go ahead and pull it inside, take the wheels and tires off, and we'll get a closer look at it so you can see what it really is. This is what our system's going to look like when it's installed. You can see here that you're going to take off your equalizer. You'll get 2 new leaf springs. The biggest difference between these leaf springs and the leaf springs that you have on your traditional trailer is this is going to be a slipper style. So the slipper style will allow for more travel so that you get the most out of your spring set. Another thing that you're going to get in the kit is you'll get 4 shock absorbers, and essentially what they're going to do is when you hit a bump, instead of your older style reacting with the equalizer that's in the middle, the way that your old style works is that your first axle will hit a bump, it'll send the axle up, and then your equalizer will send more weight to your back axle, and it'll constantly be fighting back and forth to try to bring it back to center. These shocks are going to do that job now instead. Because we don't have the older equalizer in here, we have slipper style springs, so you need something to help to bring this axle back to a normal travel height. And we've seen that this works really, really well to help the axles travel controlled going down the road. If you're looking into upgrading your suspension, chances are there's some other upgrades that you might be interested in. For example, our trailer here, unloaded, weighs about 13,500 pounds, and then loaded, it weighs about 17,000 pounds. So the owner of this vehicle was really looking for some better braking power. So we hooked him up with some disc brakes that are really going to help to apply the brakes and bring the vehicle to a more controlled and safe stop. The other thing that a lot of people will do when they put the Comfort Ride on is they will put the some sort of brace in. This one we added 2 MORryde X Factors. You just bolt it to this hanger and it helps to strengthen the hanger for these other accessories we've added. To begin your installation, you can obviously see we have some components taken off. We are doing a hydraulic disc brake job at the exact same time, so that's why we took all this stuff off. This wouldn't be a bad idea if you need to repack your bearings or do any work with your brakes or check them. Go ahead and get that stuff out of your way so that you have a lot more access to the springs themselves. Now what we're doing is we've got our RV lifted up in the air. We're just going to support the axles. What you can do from home, if you're doing this from home, is just support your axles. You will need to put some jack stands underneath the frame so that the frame doesn't drop once you disconnect it. We need to take our U-bolts off of these axles so that we can swap out the suspension here. So we're going to start by spraying some penetrating oil, let that start working for a little bit, and then we can get everything taken apart. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to take these 4 nuts off. These U-bolts are actually coming off pretty easy. Do not be surprised if you're going to have to cut these bolts. Usually you can tell by the way that the threads look up here. Ours look pretty good, but if yours are all gummed up and rusty, or if the nuts are all rusty, you may have to cut them off. Then we're going to take an 18mm socket and remove the 3 bolts that are holding this whole assembly in place. You'll have one on each of these hangers. Now we're going to take a hammer and we're going to beat these bolts out the other side. If you want to take a screwdriver, you can tap these bolts out the rest of the way. With everything disconnected, we can take our kit, our leaf springs, and slowly lower them down. We're going to set this whole kit to the side. To begin assembling our Comfort Ride system, we need to put this center section up into place. To make it a little bit easier on ourselves, we're going to put the spacer inside this gap first. And what it's designed to do is when we go to tighten down our bolt, this is going to help to make this a little bit more rigid. So what you can do, if it doesn't fit inside there, like ours is not, we're almost there. Just take a adjustable wrench like we have here, open it up a little bit, just enough to slide it over the hanger. And what we need to do is just bend it ever so slightly so we can slide this up into place. Now take your center section, slide it up into place so we can line up our holes. So we had to do a little bit of trimming on this decorative rail here because it was causing our center section to hang down too low and we couldn't get the bolt in place. So we just dry fit the bolt, make sure it does fit in there, lift our center section up, and then slide our bolt through. You want to use a flat washer on both sides and then a nut on the inside. Now we're going to take a series of drill bits, eventually working up to 21/64. We're going to drill some holes in the bottom of our frame rails here in order to mount up this plate. We need to put 4 self-tapping screws into these bottom holes. Then you're going to take your self-tapping screws once you get your final hole size drilled out, and we're going to run them in and out until we can get them fully all the way through. Basically what these are going to do is just going to take this little notch here and it's going to cut threads into our frame, and we're just going to keep running in and out, cleaning out those threads until we can run it all the way down. Once you get all 4 of these run in, you want to leave it a little bit loose just so you can get your bracket straightened out. Make sure that it's straight on your frame rail, and then we can tighten them down. When you're assembling your springs, they're going to assemble the same on the rear as they are on the front. So we've got the rear finished up on this side, and we're going to start doing the front. You want to take you're going to have some pipe spacers. Again, it's just to help add some rigidity inside of this. What you want to do is just tap it into our bracket here. It looks like it loosens up once you get it in at the end. Slide your bolt through. And these 2 size bolts are going to be different, so just match them up to the right size hole. We'll put a lock nut on the other side. Then we're going to take our leaf spring, lift it up into place. We're going to slide it over top of that bolt we just put in place. And then for now, we're getting some new wet bolts, but for now we're just going to take our old wet bolt and slide it in so that it holds it up. Then take your spacer that has this flat block on the bottom. You want to slide it up on top of our leaf spring. Line your bolt up. Another addition we're doing along with the Roadmaster Comfort Ride is going to be the MORride X Factor cross braces. So we're going to put them on the front hangers and the back hangers. If you do that, they do come with their own wet bolts, or they come with new wet bolts. So if you see this bracket sitting here, that's what that's for. Essentially what it's designed to do is it'll stiffen your front 2 hangers, and then if you get one for the back, it'll stiffen the back 2. With this system on here, it's not a bad idea because it'll really help to really lock down the ride and make it a lot more comfortable. If you are doing this upgrade where you're putting wet bolts back here, or you're going to put the X Factor on, be sure to replace the bushings from your Roadmaster Comfort Ride. They will come with nylon bushings on the inside. You need to upgrade those to bronze bushings. We do have those on our website. Now we're going to get our springs attached to our axles. You want to grab one of your brackets that looks like this. This is actually going to be the top perch for our leaf spring. We're doing the front axle on the driver's side right now. You want this bracket to be facing towards what would be the center of the 2 axles. So your rear bracket, which we've already got it mounted up, you want it pointed this way. So you'll have 2 brackets that look like this, 2 brackets that look like the other one, and this little tab is going to look like this. So they're going to kind of point at each other. That is because our shock in a little bit is going to mount to this and point up like this. So take this, set it up on top. Make sure you line that center hole. And then we'll take our new U-bolts. These U-bolts do not come with your kit, but we do have plenty of different options on our website. This happens to be a MORride kit, which I really like this construction. Gives you more than enough threads to be able to get this bolted on. Now that you've roughly got your plate in place, what we need to do is I'm going to slip these U-bolts back out, and then we're going to put our original plate from our leaf springs back on. And it's just to help to add a little bit of rigidity. The installation instructions are very confusing, and it doesn't tell you whether you're supposed to put just this plate back on or both plates, but we did confirm that you do need to put the original plate back on too. Right before you snug this up, you'll notice that there's just the slightest bit of play in this bracket front to rear, and that is the pin on the inside moving from side to side in order to properly align your axles. It may not seem like a whole lot, but over time it can wear on your tires unevenly. We're going to take our bracket and slide it to the center here. And if you have a tandem axle, you want to take the back one and push it forward or push it back. You just want both sides to be the same. So if you pull your two front brackets back, you want to do them equally, and then for your back ones, you want to do the same thing. So we'll pull it back, and then come in with a 19 millimeter and tighten them down. Then when you're tightening down U-bolts, you want to make sure that you're putting even pressure on both sides. You can usually tell that by the amount of threads that are sticking out. It doesn't have to be exact amount of threads on each side, you just want it to be really close. So just putting even pressure on both sides will torque this down to the specifications and the instructions. With all of our U-bolts tightened down and our brackets in place, we're going to take the extension bracket. You can see that we've got our two holes here on the top are closer together. These two are further apart. You want to put the two that are closer together on the bracket. You're going to use the shorter bolts that come with your kit in order to get this attached. You want them facing in. In your kit, you'll have two different size nuts. This is going to be for the longer bolts in your kit, so you want to use the taller nut for these shorter bolts. We'll thread one of those onto each of our nuts. Then take a 19 millimeter socket and wrench and tighten these down. Now it's time to get our shock in place. You want the comfort ride to be readable, so you want the shock to be facing like this, but you want this readable portion here to be facing the inside of our trailer. We're going to be using our long bolts to get this attached. I've tried it both ways. I've tried to attach it to this bracket we just put on first, and then try to get it to fit up into this. This is going to be at a much heavier angle, the way that the shock's going to sit against it, so we have spacer blocks to make up for that. They're these little wedges. So we'll start by taking our bolt, our long bolt, with a washer, and slide another washer on, a spacer block, and then your wedge. Then we'll take this whole assembly, slide it up through this opening up here. Then you'll take another wedge, slide it on, a washer, and then one of those shorter nuts. And the wedges are essentially to make up for the angle that our shock's going to be at so that you can still mount it safe and secure. Before tightening that top bolt, you're going to give yourself a lot more wiggle room with this shock to get it up into place if you don't tighten it. So we'll take our spring here, our shock, we're going to take our bolt, slide it through, and then another washer. A good way to keep this straight is you always want a washer against the shock. That's why there's so many washers that comes in your kit, because you're going to need one on each side. Throw that bolt through there, throw another washer on, and then another one of those shorter nuts. When you're tightening this down, you can see that our wedge is going to naturally fall with the thicker end towards the bottom. On the inside of the trailer, that's how we want it, but on the inside of this bracket, we want that thicker part to be facing up like this. So what I found is that it's easier just to get it close, then move that spacer to where you need it, and then tighten it down the rest of the way. After you tighten the top one, come down and do the same for the bottom. Then you want to come back and torque down your hardware to the specifications and the instructions. Then take a knife and cut your safety strap off. Once you get one side complete, you can go ahead and repeat that same process on the other side, following all those same steps. At this point, you would reassemble your hubs and drums. If you took them off, put your wheels and tires back on and get those torqued down. we're going to continue on with our disc brake install. Once you've completed these steps, you want to be sure to come back and add some grease to your wet bolts. That's going to do it for installation. Make sure that you get all your components back in place, and then you're ready to hit the road.